It's clear to most audience goers worldwide that there is perhaps no one in the industry more dedicated to the craft of movie making like Tom Cruise is. I mean, it's genuinely impressive. For years, Cruise has dedicated both his career and life to delivering resonant, impactful, and most importantly, entertaining cinematic experiences that feel well-rounded in every sense of the word. You see, Cruise does make big-budget blockbusters, but they don't feel like the traditional big-budget blockbusters we get every year. Rather, these films are chock full of nuance and depth in terms of characterization and narrative complexity, and also happen to feature electrifying action scenes. This is also due in part to Cruise pretty much dedicating his all to performing those said stunts within these action scenes to immense effect. As an avid film fan and movie critic, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen Tom Cruise either hanging off the side of some sort of airplane, jumping off of a massive building, or driving recklessly through the streets of some small town in an elaborate chase sequence. And these actions by Cruise feel entirely different from the bulk of most action-based media within the industry nowadays because he gives his all to these moments. As mentioned within my previous video where I ranked every single Mission Impossible film, which you should check out and also subscribe if you like the content you see, I talked about how it almost seems like Cruise is dedicated to risking his own personal life on camera for our own enjoyment and entertainment as audience members. And on that level, you really just have to respect him for it. Listening to interviews with Cruise, it's clear that he has a fundamental and foundational understanding and appreciation of the cinematic art form, particularly within the movie theaters. There's perhaps no better or more impassioned spokesperson for the cinematic experience out there. In listening to him talk about why he makes these movies the way he makes them, it really hits close to home, particularly for those audience members like me who fell in love with the art form at an early age. Everything Cruise touches on within his support of the cinematic medium is entirely why audiences for hundreds of years have gone to the movie theaters and supported cinema in all shapes and forms. And in a world where the climate is getting crazier by the day and things seem to be trending downwards in a violent fashion, there's perhaps no better place to escape into another world than the movie theater. This is why I will always go to check out a Tom Cruise movie in theaters. And as I sat down to watch Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning at my press screening on Wednesday evening, this thought kept popping up in my mind as the movie progressed. Watching Tom Cruise on screen as he maneuvered his way through a claustrophobic submarine and engaged in close quarters combat with the antagonists of the film, I couldn't help but understand that this is the type of film that truly exemplifies why movie theaters and the cinematic art form itself are so important. Cruise has made these movies for maximum impact, which is something you can only feel and experience on a large silver screen with surround sound speakers all around. And that's why I'll start off my review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning with this. If you care at all about the art form of cinema itself, go see this movie in theaters. Regardless of how great the film might be overall, and trust me, we'll get into the problems I have with it overall, that doesn't distract from how thoroughly engaging and entertaining it is to see such a hyper-realized film such as this projected at such a large scale. For that reason, this film is almost required viewing for those who love filmmaking and movies in particular, and want to see something that will make them fall in love with the art form all over again. As the last installment in the Mission Impossible franchise, the film's events pick up soon after the last installment, Dead Reckoning, left off, where Tom Cruise once again returns as Ethan Hunt, an undercover IMF agent, who is tracking down once again a dangerous AI algorithm named the Entity, with many different parties of interest searching for the cruciform key in order to control the artificial intelligence in a world's race to prevent nuclear catastrophe. However, Ethan isn't satisfied to see one singular person hold control of something so powerful and world-altering as the Entity, which is why he enlists in a mission to destroy the algorithm once and for all, pitting his own personal loyalties, including the loyalty he gave to the IMF at the beginning of his career, to the ultimate test. I think one of the most shocking elements about The Final Reckoning is how so many of the early reviews did a terrible job at conveying what this film actually is. In the weeks leading up to the film's release, as more and more critics and film influencers saw the film, there was an interesting shift in the conversation surrounding it as people claimed the film wasn't that great. In fact, a lot of the conversation surrounding this film trended towards everything the film didn't manage to achieve over what it actually did, which tempered audience expectations heading in, including my own. However, to my surprise, the film was actually great, featuring some of the best moments in the franchise by far, and a poignant and affecting ending that wrapped up the story arc of Ethan Hunt in such a profound and impactful way. It's actually baffling as a critic to see so many of my peers lauding hate onto such a film for everything it falls into a lackluster category for, rather than everything it surpasses expectations for. But I guess in a society where blatant rage bait and negative criticism drive clicks and views, such a subject shouldn't be as baffling as it is to me. To say that this film fails in the one job it has in delivering a solid conclusion to the series is incorrect, as there is so much the film imparts in terms of impact that will leave the most grizzled of audience members satisfied, and ultimately moved and affected by the end of the film. Granted, The Final Reckoning isn't a perfect film. While it's insanely good, I find I really can't defend the first hour of the film. You see, the first hour of the film essentially acts as a catch-up session for those who are either unfamiliar with or don't remember the events of the last film, in which many of the plot points within this film rely on that film to work. This essentially means that the opening act of the film reestablishes character motives and ideas that might seem impactful on paper, but feel very awkward and drawn out to series fans and regulars. It's almost like we've seen all of this before, because we have. And I admit it, I found myself actually worried as I watched this portion of the film in my screening. As it extended on and on with no promise or semblance of an end in sight, I began to worry that the film really was as bad as many of my peers had described it as. Yet there arrives a point at the end of the first act where Hunt faces the CIA in their briefing room as they discuss what to do with the entity, where he seemingly looks into the camera and says, "I need you to trust me one last time." And strangely, it's at this point in the film where the movie absolutely pops off, for lack of a better word. And this scene placement is so weird because it's almost as if Hunt himself is looking at the audience watching the film, recognizing and acknowledging the shortcomings of the film thus far, and imploring the audience to stay hooked at the promise of something far greater that lies ahead in the film. Because Cruise has never let me down before as an audience member, I myself at this point in the film found myself trusting him wholeheartedly. And oh, I am so glad I did. To say The Final Reckoning is anything short of electric in the last 90 minutes is perhaps the understatement of the entire year. I mean, this is the closest thing to a pure shot of adrenaline within the cinematic medium, and I mean every single word of that. In delivering a solid and profound conclusion to this series, Cruise and McQuarrie have crafted not only a somber and bittersweet story about personal loyalty and ties, but they have also packed the film to the brim within the second and third acts with some of the best action set pieces that not only exist within the franchise itself, but within the action genre in the last 20 years alone. I won't spoil them in depth here, as I truly believe everyone should check this film out in theaters on their own, but if you do manage to see it in IMAX, you will see the film shift to an aspect ratio to a full 1:90 in certain sequences throughout. And when it does that, you know you are in for a hell of a ride. And that doesn't even begin to describe it. Simply put, this is Cruise pushing himself and his stunt work beyond anything we've seen in this franchise before. Even compared to Mission Impossible Fallout, which was incredible. It's breathtaking, it's visceral, and high in impact and intensity. And the reason the action choreography carries so much dramatic weight here is because, as the conclusion of the series, anything goes, and you really feel that throughout the rest of the runtime. Characters no longer feel safe, and the stakes feel insurmountable and inconsistent. This truly feels like the first time a mission in this franchise has felt impossible in every sense of the word, and the almost suffocating sense of tension throughout these key scenes is impressive. It's also framed and directed brilliantly by Christopher McQuarrie, who has now found a personal groove in which the action in the series carries almost a meditative and reflective beauty to it in key parts. This doesn't feel like large-scale action choreography. It almost feels and looks like finely tuned ballet work in key areas. This is because every actor and performer here moves in such a fluid way, executing the key points of choreography in each scene in such a perfect balance. And when talking about the conclusion of a franchise, one of the top questions on everyone's minds is whether the ending to a film is wrapped up in a satisfying way. And with this film, I find that is clearly the case. I mean, this is such a quiet yet impactful ending to this franchise. Everything that the series has built thus far by being grandiose and epic in scale is diminished down to a quieter level than what audiences might expect. But in terms of characterization for both Ethan and his closest associates, it just feels right. Maybe audiences were expecting something grand or epic for the ending of this film, and that's perfectly understandable. And I personally find that the ending works so well because of how small in scope it is. It feels like a fond and quiet farewell to these characters, packed with bittersweet nostalgia at the experiences we've spent together through all 8 films, yet also always looking towards the future and what might lie ahead for these characters next. And it's on this level that The Final Reckoning truly becomes something profound and magical in every sense of the word. Simply put, the last 90 minutes of this film are among the best moments of the franchise by far. That the film might feel slightly stale and repetitive up to that point is a shortcoming you'll ultimately have to work through to great reward on the other side. As Ethan Hunt does within all of these films, you'll have to choose whether you take that gamble or not. But if you do, you might find something worthwhile and wholeheartedly entertaining on the other side. As I left my press screening of The Final Reckoning, I couldn't help feel a tinge of melancholic sadness amid the exhilaration I had just spent the better part of 90 straight minutes with. This wasn't because the film was bad, but rather the reality had slowly sunk in as I walked out of the theater that this was it. This was the last entry in the franchise that had been so impactful and important in my life thus far, and to cinema itself for years since its origin. We might never see another action film this profound and invigorating in the action genre for years to come, if ever. And on that level, The Final Reckoning succeeds not just as an action film, but as an emotionally resonant and satisfying conclusion to the franchise that feels made with love in every frame. More than anything in that moment, I felt my love for cinema and film itself strengthen. An absolute dream of mine is to be able to shake Tom Cruise's hand one day in my career and just tell him, thank you for everything you do for the art of movie making. Because it's movies like these that transport me back to a childlike state of wonder as I examine how powerful and profound film can be as an art form. When you're able to experience that while watching a movie, that's when you know it's a truly special film. That's why I'm giving Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning a 4 out of 5 stars. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this review on my channel. If you're new around here and you like the content you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on push notifications. Also, leave comment suggestions down below for future video, essay, and review topics. With that being said, until next time, this is Mitchell signing off. Peace out.